Okay, great. Thank you. So it is still Tuesday, May 20th, and we are meeting this afternoon to discuss H50 and an amendment to H50. And before we get started, I just want to mention a couple of things that this list, this inventory is not a separate list from the existing inventory that is produced now. It's additional fields on the items that are on that list. And you might recall that we received a 1986 version of the inventory. We're borrowing this from Commissioner Minoli. And I went and looked up just some of the items, and they actually do have the use. It's done by the Parks and Recreation, this amount. Thought that was interesting. And I looked at the first page of that, the introduction, and I gave you each a copy of it. It's from Madeline Kunin, who was the governor then. And what she says is, please provide an updated inventory of state-owned buildings. The purpose of this report is to display as accurately as possible a total listing of buildings, location, and description of their general use and value. These properties belong to all Vermonters. It is they who have helped build them and use them today for a wide variety of purposes. State government has a continued responsibility to maintain all of our buildings and properties in the best manner to serve the public. And I appreciate having seen that, and I think our purpose now is the same purpose. And so as much information as we can include in this inventory, the better, in my opinion. So who wants to start the conversation? Senator Watson is here, but she doesn't need to speak. She's just here in case we have questions. Why don't you start, Senator Douglas, because you are the presenter of the bill, and you also missed some of the meeting today because you were in another meeting.
Yeah, there was another bill that had amendment. So I don't have much to say. Senator Watson, are you willing to give a 15-second overview that I missed of? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the intent here is that I sort of share the concern about selling land that might be the decision of, let's say, a commissioner. And I have all the faith in the current commissioners. That's not my, the concern here. But if a commissioner just decided that the purposes of the state somehow did not include, let's say, recreation, for example, that suddenly that might appear, the properties might appear on a list somewhere. And so, potentially for sale. So I wanted to be clear about who gets to decide what the purposes of the state are. And so the language is intended to not be narrowing, but rather expansive in terms of ensuring that the statutory purposes of the purposes of and policies of an agency are included in whatever we deem as purposes of the state.
So it eliminates subjectivity by giving the reasons for whether or not a property is unnecessary.
I would leave that to legislative council to decide.
Okay.
Because I think it is at least at the minimum tying it to an objective thing.
Yeah.
I think there's still space because it says including the statutory purposes, but that it could be other things, but it at least needs to include the statutory purposes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe this is a question for Ledge Council, but could you switch the word policy for purposes? So that's the same thing that reads easier.
Or maybe delete policy.
Yes. Because purposes are
Statutory, delete policy, and you just have statutory purposes.
I would feel a lot better. I think if we just got rid of that part of it, I just don't think that is the role of the commissioner to be giving their opinion about the usefulness to the state?
Well, this is the head of each agency
I don't know.
who would say that, who would just identify the existing statutory purpose. And every property of the state should have a statutory purpose. Every, like the table has a statutory purpose. I mean, everything that we own has a purpose.
Yeah, if this isn't asking that only at the end of it, it's basically asking their opinion.
Well, I think,
I see the rest of it. I know, but when you add what and adds to it, it does change what the bill of the whole, where we were with it. It just does. And I don't have a problem with Ann's language as much as what it does to the whole bill, especially that little section of it. I just something in there just clawing at me that I can't agree with. So I'm just trying to find some language in there that would make me feel better.
so if we deleted the word policy and
If we just prescribe to the commissioner whether any building is vacant. And if we got rid of whether the land is unnecessary for state purpose. I mean, I don't know.
well, that's the whole point of the bill.
Okay.
That's how it came to us.
Well,
The new language is just the which includes the statutory policy and purposes of any state agency. So if as I see it, the last phrase modifies the other. It's not a new item. It's more adjectives about the property.
I wonder what instance there would be for the land to not be necessary for state purposes. Like, let's say AHS has a property and there's a lot next to the property, next to the building that isn't being used by AHS at all. So they might indicate, this is not being used by us, but does that make it unnecessary for state purposes? Because another agency could very well find a purpose for it.
or 200 years from now.
Or 200 years from now, we can find a purpose for it.
Sure. Sure, and that's a choice that's a determination that we and the House Committee make and we have sold property. We authorized that
I
last
suppose
year.
it doesn't hurt to get the opinion of the head of an agency of whether or not they think it's unnecessary. If we're the policy committee making the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So up until about 30 seconds ago, I was fine. It's the unnecessary part of it that is getting me a little bit, because to Sam's point, it may not be necessarily necessary, excuse me, for within the boundary of the commissioner of whatever agency at that time, but it may become necessary for another agency or for whatever. So that's, I guess, what's getting me a little bit, for that.
Right, but the whole purpose of this bill is to understand at least it would be the first threshold of probably 10 or so actions before anything was sold. But the first threshold would be, does whichever agency has control of the property need that property? If they don't, then I would think we would look at other agencies of the state or look at potential future uses of the state before we would sell it. But that's the selling process. This is just a list of properties that the agencies could do without.
To your particular point, this is just saying for the state. I think if you say for that commissioner or secretaries who's ever making that opinion, or for their department, then do you understand?
Okay, yes, yes.
I'm on board
Okay,
with
I
that.
understand. Okay,
But, if you can't, if I'm like, I don't know, I'm saying if Wanda Noli can say, yeah, for that, but then Farrell can go, okay, but you know, we want to build housing here. So you say, and
Yeah.
Windsor's a perfect example,
yeah,
you know, so that's where I was hung up a little.
Yeah.
On and to set everything goes.
so I think what you would be suggesting is an amendment on line 15, where it says any land is unnecessary for the agency's purposes. Instead of the state, for state purposes.
Cause I mean, it's.
I could get a little closer to that.
Yeah, it's under their auspice.
Yeah.
How about this? It's, the head, so go to the top of the underlined section, the head of each agency shall list and indicate in its inventory in a form prescribed by the commissioner whether any building is vacant and whether any land is unnecessary for the statutory purpose of that agency.
Oh, interesting. Put it together.
I'm a little better for that because it is that what they're responsible for. Hey, I don't need this anymore. But if it's.
And this is the purpose.
And it narrows that,
Yeah.
you know, I'm saying I don't need this anymore. But it's not saying necessarily the state doesn't need it anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
That's-
so the
I don't
statutory,
want it to be this list to be all of a sudden to say, okay, this is what we're gonna sell.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want anybody making that decision. It's that easy.
I'm good,
The weather.
but from, you know, and
So
that's- I feel better there.
oh, I
What do you
see.
think, Rob?
Great, that's fine. All right, well, how about we counter that? Because then we have statutory purpose and we have the agency. And I think that,
I think it makes the language more clear.
and I think it's consistent with the intent,
And you're still.
both intents. I'm sorry, go ahead, what?
And you're still listing it, I mean,
Yes,
It's
and it's, yes, and it's easier to understand.
and I apologize, Senator Watson, since this is your amendment. I wanna, how do you feel about that?
Oh, I feel good about that. In fact, I think I like it better, because when it's shorter, just in general, and I think does the clarifying work that I was hoping it would do, and I think it's great.
Great,
So
Thank you.
we can do that as a committee amendment, and you wouldn't need to stand up to talk. It's be free.
It doesn't mean.
Oh, we're gonna get credit for it. We're gonna get credit for it.
Oh, no, that's okay.
No.
That's all right.
Thank you, Senator Watson.
yeah, so that is like give you credit for it,
You
okay,
want me to report that on the floor?
yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let's straw vote, yes? Okay, yay, 5-0. If I may.
Just so you all are aware, I think that amendment, as I had proposed it, may appear in the calendar, but I will just not offer it. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, so then we need to get the draft changed. So it hopefully will be done by tomorrow. Should be able to be done by tomorrow. Okay, well, that's good. Anything else? Okay. We are adjourned.